before your very eyes, a marvel of science, Dr. Chip Wellington the Third makes his momentous choice to activate the release protocol. Behold, the Neanderthal Project. But at what peril for all of mankind?
The resurrection of Chip Wellington the Third. In the near future, close enough to feel familiar, far enough to deny responsibility, Dr. Kirby Benedy stood in a government-funded laboratory that smelled faintly of antiseptic and corporate ambition. Before him sat a 12-foot block of ancient Antarctic ice, glowing under surgical lights like the world's most expensive cocktail cube. Suspended inside it was a Neanderthal man, intact, massive, perfectly preserved, and, if several defense contracts went according to plan, potentially very employable. Dr. Benedy adjusted his glasses and checked the readouts on his tablet for the 14th time. Reanimation had not gone well in previous attempts. The first experiment involved a small prehistoric rodent. They thawed it carefully, revived it successfully. It lived for 2 full days. Unfortunately, it died of what the medical team clinically described as existential distress. It just kept screaming. One intern had reported, like it saw the future. The second attempt involved a saber-toothed cat. That one technically survived. It immediately bit 3 scientists, escaped containment, and refused to acknowledge human authority. It now lived in a wildlife preserve and had amassed a surprising social media following. There had also been an ill-advised attempt at reanimating a prehistoric mosquito. That project was quietly buried. The one undisputed success had been woolly mammoth, thanks to a generous grant from Tyson Foods, who had discovered that paleo-authentic mammoth ribeye tested extremely well among upscale consumers. The mammoth cloning program flourished. At first, corporations had tried lab-grown meat, but consumers rejected it. It doesn't have bones, focus groups complained. How do we know it suffered? The mammoth industry, by contrast, was thriving. The Neanderthal Project, however, was more delicate. Officially, the purpose was anthropological study. Unofficially, defense analysts were very excited. A species built like linebackers, with cold weather tolerance and low complaint rates, ideal for logging, mining, offshore drilling, and several wars currently in need of better public relations. Dr. Benedy wiped his hands. Commencing thaw. The ice began to melt in carefully calibrated increments. Steam curled upward like the breath of something ancient reconsidering its return. Minutes passed. Then, a blink. Another. The Neanderthal's chest expanded with a deep, steady inhale. Dr. Benedy gasped. It worked, he whispered. The giant man's eyes opened fully. They were not wild. They were alert, curious. Dr. Benedy swallowed and stepped forward, smiling the careful smile of someone greeting a large animal that may or may not understand tax law. He patted his chest. Me, Dr. Kirby, he said slowly. From future, he gestured awkwardly. You? The Neanderthal sat up with surprising grace. He blinked several times, scanning the room. Then, he spoke. Salve. Dr. Benedy froze. Bonjour? A pause. Guten Tag. Another pause. Watching Kirby's micro-expressions. Shalom. Kirby's eyebrows twitched. Mandarin. Sanskrit. Old Norse. Akkadian. Each phrase landed with careful precision. The giant observing, adjusting. Finally, hello. The English was crisp, refined. The Neanderthal straightened, folded his hands politely, and inclined his head. Good afternoon. I am Chip Wellington the Third. Dr. Benedy stared. You learned English just now. Chip nodded. I analysed your probable phonetic comprehension based on pupil dilation and muscular response to prior linguistic stimuli. Kirby blinked twice. You're supposed to be a lower life form. Chip tilted his head gently. Ah, you've been reading your own books. Dr. Benedy cleared his throat. Our fossil records suggest limited technological development. Chip glanced around the laboratory. You Homo sapiens built glowing caves filled with humming boxes, he observed kindly. We Neanderthal. We built cities you cannot see. Kirby frowned. We found no evidence of Neanderthal advanced tools. Chip smiled. That is because we were conscious of our planetary footprint. He stood, stretching, towering but calm. We limited consumption. Our diet was primarily plants, nuts, berries. Root vegetables were especially fashionable. You are hunters, Kirby protested. Only when necessary. And only with consent. Consent, yes. We communicated effectively with other species. You're telling me you asked animals permission to eat them? Of course. It would be rude otherwise. Kirby pressed his temples. When you Homos first moved into our region, Chip continued pleasantly. We attempted to be welcoming. Despite your tiny heads, our heads are proportional. Kirby snapped. Chip squinted at him. They are enthusiastic. And your remarkable ability to panic collectively, Chip added. Kirby shifted defensively. You were the ones who disappeared. Chip's expression softened. Eventually, some of your women attended a gathering, he said diplomatically. Fermented berries were involved. Cross-species diplomacy flourished. Kirby's face reddened. Your men became jealous. Chip nodded gently. You are a competitive species, even when there is no competition. So you're saying humans hunted you out of insecurity? Chip considered that. And branding issues? Kirby hesitated. If you were so advanced, why do your bones show no industrial development? Chip's eyes twinkled. We avoided large-scale industrialization. We understood the mathematics of excess early. He gestured to the skyline visible through the lab window. You did not. Kirby folded his arms. You expect me to believe your civilization had advanced technology, but left no trace. Chip nodded. We limited our space travel. As well, you had space travel. Yes. Kirby blinked repeatedly. When your species became unpredictable, the majority of our people departed during what we call the Great Exodus. To where? Chip smiled faintly. A sister world. In the Andariel expanse. We named it Eridon. Kirby's jaw dropped. Did you leave family behind? Yes, my son. He left with the others. Chip Wellington the Fourth inquired. Kirby. Chip looked offended. No. Chip Wellington the Second. We count backward. Why? We are from BC. We counted down in preparation. For what? Chip's expression grew reverent. The visit from? The one. Kirby opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. After hours of conversation that unraveled most of human academic certainty, Chip finally asked, why did you bring me back? Dr. Benedy hesitated. He thought of defense contracts, labor initiatives, strategic leverage. He swallowed. We intended to clone you. For labor. For military use. Silence settled in the room. Chip did not look angry. He looked sad. You wish to save your world by repeating your worst instincts. Kirby's voice cracked. Our planet is overcrowded, polluted, politically fractured. We can't agree on anything except war. Chip studied him. You want transport to Eridon. Kirby nodded desperately. Just me. My wife. My daughter. It could be secret. Chip's eyes softened. I volunteered to remain behind, he said quietly, even as my son left. I believed your species might yet mature. His voice lowered. But I watched my people slaughtered by frightened men who mistook difference for threat. Kirby looked down. I cannot risk my entire civilization for your escape. Security chatter echoed faintly beyond the lab doors. Chip continued. Our elders planned to send small observation crews periodically to determine whether humanity was ready. UFOs, Kirby whispered. If rings appeared in your crops, and the ships departed immediately, Chip said gently, it meant you were still too dangerous. Kirby managed a weak laugh. Have we improved? Chip studied him carefully. Have you stopped killing one another? Kirby exhaled. We've gotten better at it. Chip nodded slowly. I will not fight your wars. I will not be your slave. He looked around at the sterile lab. You have brought me back to a world with little worth living for. Kirby stepped forward. Then teach us, he pleaded. Help us. Chip grew thoughtful. Our people were not always enlightened, he admitted. 200,000 years ago, we studied a darker era. He began counting on his fingers. We elected leaders who demonized dissenters. Kirby winced. We built massive machines that burned toxic fuels to transport ourselves short distances. We could easily walk. Kirby coughed. We enslaved animals on industrial scales, while claiming to love them. Kirby avoided eye contact. We harvested more than we needed. We competed for symbols. We measured success by dominance. He paused, and we stared into small glowing stones for guidance. Kirby slowly lowered his tablet. How did you stop? Chip smiled. We began speaking to one another. Doctor, Kirby stood very still, which, for a man who had just resurrected a prehistoric being and been intellectually dismantled by him for 45 consecutive minutes, was impressive. So, Kirby said weakly, clutching his tablet like a shield, you're saying you also had a phase where you elected loud, insecure men with symbolic headgear? Chip Wellington the Third nodded solemnly. Oh yes. The great era of decorative authority. If a Neanderthal could balance something large on his head and shout with conviction, we gave him control of the grain supply. Kirby blinked. That seems primitive. It was. Chip agreed. We also had a period where we argued endlessly through stone tablets, instead of speaking to one another face to face. You mean like social media? Chip tilted his head. Was that the era where individuals carved their opinions into rock walls and then immediately smashed anyone who disagreed? More or less? Yes. We called that the shouting wall period. Productivity declined sharply. Kirby shifted uncomfortably. Chip continued gently. We once divided ourselves into tribes, based entirely on which mammoth football team we supported. You had mammoth football? No, Chip said. We simply argued about it. Kirby stared at him. We also built massive glowing caves where we gathered to stare at flickering images of other Neanderthals, pretending to live better lives than ours. Kirby swallowed. That's not entirely inaccurate. And, Chip added thoughtfully, we mass-produced small polished stones we kept in our hands at all times. We consulted them for wisdom. They made us anxious. Kirby slowly lowered his tablet. Silence filled the lab. Somewhere behind the glass, a Tyson Foods representative quietly deleted a marketing campaign titled Neander Beef. Taste the past. Chip looked around the sterile room. At the fluorescent lights, the humming machines, the plastic. You are not evil, Chip said gently. You are just loud and frightened and very impressed with yourselves. Kirby flushed. We cured diseases. We built skyscrapers. We went to the moon. Chip nodded. And yet you struggle to share the planet with your neighbor. Kirby had no rebuttal prepared on his tablet for that. After a long moment, Kirby asked quietly, so what did your people do to change? Chip folded his large hands together. We stopped worshipping comfort as the highest good. Kirby's brow furrowed. We stopped confusing convenience with progress. We stopped electing those who promised to punish our enemies, and instead chose those who could listen to them. Kirby let out a strained laugh. That would never get someone elected. Yes, Chip agreed. It did not go smoothly at first. He walked to the frosted lab window and looked out at the smog-blurred skyline. We began teaching our children how to argue kindly, how to lose gracefully, how to plant more than they consumed, how to measure success by harmony instead of dominance. Kirby rubbed his face. And it worked? He asked. Chip smiled faintly. Eventually, another silence. Finally, Kirby said in a small voice. If I released you, you wouldn't hurt anyone. Chip looked genuinely confused. Why would I? You're bigger. Chip glanced down at himself. So, are elephants? They mostly eat salad. Kirby almost laughed. Behind the glass, the government observers were whispering urgently. One of them gestured toward a thick folder labeled Neanderthal Defense Initiative. Chip's eyes softened. You want to save your wife and daughter, he said. Kirby nodded. Then, start there. Kirby blinked. Start where? Your family. Teach them what I have told you. Speak gently. Live smaller. Refuse cruelty even when it is profitable. Especially when it is profitable. Kirby glanced toward the observers. They'll never allow that. Chip's expression became amused. Dr. Benedy, he said, you resurrected a species. You may find you are capable of more than you think. The lab doors buzzed. Security was coming. Kirby looked at the release panel on the containment chamber, then at the red button labeled Subject Restraint Protocol, then back at Chip. Chip did not look afraid. He simply waited. Kirby's hand trembled. For the first time in his career, he did something without a grant, without a board vote, without a defense contract. He pressed the green button. The containment locks disengaged with a soft hiss. Security burst in seconds later, shouting, armed, confused. Chip stepped forward calmly. I will not fight you, he said pleasantly. The guards hesitated. It is surprisingly difficult to attack someone who looks like they're about to offer you herbal tea. Kirby stepped between them. He's not a weapon, Kirby said, voice shaking but loud. He's a mirror. The room went quiet. One of the guards lowered his rifle. Another checked his phone. Outside, the smog hung thick over the city. Chip placed a large, steady hand on Kirby's shoulder. You asked for transport to our new world, Chip said softly. You are already on it. Kirby frowned. This planet, Chip continued, this is the one you must save. We do not need another Earth. You do. He turned toward the doors. Will you come with us? Kirby asked, desperately. Chip paused. Yes, he said. For a while. Security stiffened. Chip clarified. Not to fight your wars, not to cut your forests, not to carry your burdens while you remain unchanged. He smiled gently. I will teach. Weeks later, the headlines were confused. Neanderthal refuses defense contract. Climate markets crash after plant more than you consume trend. Mammoth steak sales decline as public learns they can just eat vegetables. Chip Wellington the Third began appearing in classrooms instead of laboratories. Children loved him. Adults were more complicated. He spoke slowly. He listened fully. He refused to debate on television. When asked which political party he supported, he replied, the breathing one. When asked if he believed in the one, he smiled. When you learn to live as though you are not alone on the planet, you will have met the one. Dr. Kirby, once known for attempting to weaponize the past, became known for something stranger. He started admitting when he was wrong. It was deeply unpopular at first, but it was contagious. Years later, when unusual lights appeared briefly in the sky and faint circular patterns were found in a Kansas cornfield, panic erupted. Chip simply examined the shapes and nodded. They are still watching, he said. Is that good? Kirby asked. Chip smiled. This time, he said. They did not leave immediately, and for the first time in a very long while, humanity began, very slowly, to count forward instead of down.
Don't you worry about a thing. Nobody cares, so let's just sing.